A verdict returned the emotional moments in the courtroom as the jury read its decision in the Sockeye wildfire case. We hear from one defendant for the first time. Reopening old proposals, new life breathed into the Pebble Mine project by a settlement with the feds. Reaction from the Bristol Bay area. And handing out pink slips, Anchorage school districts laying off teachers this week while state lawmakers turned down one proposal to fill the gap.
You're watching KTUU, Channel 2, Anchorage, Alaska's news source. And now, the 5 o'clock report with Rebecca Palsha.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg Imig, not guilty of counts of the charges that are listed in counts 1 through 12.
It was stunned silence in a Palmer courtroom today as jurors read the verdicts against Greg Imig and Amy DeWitt. Good evening. The two were found not guilty on all charges in the trial over the 2015 Sockeye wildfire. This afternoon's announcement comes after 13 days of trial and 2 days of deliberation. Blake Essig is at the Palmer Courthouse now. And Blake, you have covered the Sockeye fire. 2 years ago that happened. You've spoken with many people who've lost homes and property in that fire. And you've been at the Palmer Courthouse every single day since this trial began. What was the feeling in the courtroom this afternoon when that jury verdict was read?
Rebecca, I don't think that many of the people who have been following the Sockeye fire trial expected this result. It was quiet, and from what I could tell, a shocked courtroom as the verdict was delivered. Both Greg Imig and Amy DeWitt each face 12 misdemeanor charges. Those charges carried along a possible jail sentence of up to 3 years and roughly $80,000 worth of fines plus restitution. When the verdict was read, the gallery was filled with victims of the Sockeye fire. Those victims left the courtroom scratching their heads, some in tears, wondering how a jury of 6 could have found the defendants not guilty. On the other side, Imig, DeWitt, and their family and friends were also left in tears. We caught up with Imig and DeWitt immediately after leaving the courtroom, where Greg Imig read a prepared statement.
Amy and I would really like to thank our supporters and the family and the friends who stood by us this entire time. This, I believe, is the longest misdemeanor trial in the history of Alaska. And the 2014 Sockeye, it and the wildfire has taken a huge toll on everyone. But thanks to this trial, the real information has come out in detail. From the beginning, Amy and I have been forthright and honest, and frankly, this trial of by the state of Alaska was wasteful and unneeded. We knew we had to take this path to clear our name. We too lost our property and possessions in the Willow Fire, and combined with this trial, it has been very costly for us.
And coming up on the News Hour, we'll hear reaction from the victims of the Sockeye fire. They were in the gallery in the moments after hearing the verdict. Again, Greg Imig and Amy DeWitt found not guilty on all charges relating to the Sockeye fire. In Palmer, Blake Essig, Channel 2 News.
Alaskans will not pay an income tax anytime soon, not after an overwhelming vote today by Senate Republicans to defeat the plan supported by Governor Bill Walker and the Democratic-led House. Now, what about the political factions reaching a compromise on a fiscal plan? Channel 2's Austin Baird joins us with that story. Austin.
Rebecca, it's been one of the most intensely debated bills here in the Capitol this year and really in many years. And while it was widely known already that Senate Republicans did not like the idea, now it is easy to say and definite that the income tax is dead, at least for this year. It's extremely rare for a bill that does not have the support to pass to be put to a floor vote, but Senate Republicans saw this as necessary to turn focus to other proposals that may have more support. 4 senators voted to pass HB 115. All Republicans and 1 Democratic senator, Senator Bill Wielechowski, voted no. Even though the Senate president says Republicans in his caucus are skeptical of broad-based taxes, the House Speaker sees at least some room for compromise still on an alternative tax proposal that's still being hashed out.
What the broad-based tax or the complete plan is code word for is some kind of massive tax. And so, no, we're not interested in other massive taxes.
But I did not hear in the Senate's press conference a slamming of the door on possibly any other revenue measures. And I think that's where some of the negotiations are going to head towards.
Now remember, there is consensus both in the House and Senate to restructure the permanent fund and use some of its earnings to help close the $2.7 billion budget gap. But really, there's no obvious path forward right now for that to happen because many House Democrats do not see it as fair to reduce the size of permanent fund dividends unless high-income earners are also being taxed and paying an equivalent amount of their income. And remember now there's just 5 days remaining until the constitutional deadline is reached, and they either have to vote to extend session by 10 days or possibly go into a special session. So a lot of work and a lot of distance remains, even though there's not a lot of time left. Live from Juneau, Austin Baird, Channel 2 News.
The Anchorage School District says it's expecting to lay off dozens of teachers in the next few weeks because of uncertainty over funding. Channel 2's Cameron McIntosh tells us what's known about the cuts and what remains in question. Cameron.
Well, Rebecca, today the Anchorage School District handed out layoff notices to 5 tenured teachers, and the district says it's preparing to hand out layoff notices to an additional 200 untenured positions in the next couple of weeks. The district says the layoffs are a result of uncertainty over how much funding they'll receive from the state budget, which is still being deliberated by the legislature. The district is required by a state statute to tell teachers whether or not they can be reemployed before the end of the school year. But school officials say they don't expect a budget to be finalized before then. According to ASD's Chief Human Resources Officer, some of the layoffs could be subject to a recall process depending on the outcome of the budget discussions in Juneau, but the district will definitely have fewer teachers next school year.
The number will be somewhat different once the decisions are made. However, we're uncertain if those decisions will be arrived at before the last day of school. And so we're having to take a very broad approach to ensure that we do not exceed whatever the budgetary authority ends up being.
So Cameron, how do these layoffs compare to previous years?
Rebecca, according to the district says it's been able to avoid larger layoffs like this in the past by just absorbing the eliminated teaching positions into attrition. But this year is, of course, obviously substantially higher. According to the district, in both 2012 and 2014, there were 35 teachers laid off. Rebecca?
All right. Well, the Matsu-Borough School District laid off about 30 employees this week and reduced the hours of at least 100 more. 15 of those cut positions are teachers, but including retirement, the district will have 55 fewer teachers next year and an expected 300. The district superintendent says the layoffs announced yesterday are with an expected full funding of the base student allocation by the state legislature, and the 5% reduction proposed by the Senate would cause further cuts. The superintendent says the district will have the highest student-teacher ratios they've seen.
A high school teacher could easily have 220 students now that they're responsible for. If you're an English teacher, that's a tremendous amount of papers to try and provide meaningful feedback and specific feedback on.
And the Matsu-Borough approves its budget on Tuesday, and the school district will make any changes to its budget based on borough funding on Wednesday. When we come back, a settlement between the EPA and the Pebble Partnership, what it means for the proposed Southwest Alaskan mine with the new administration, and
balancing renewable with traditional. I'm Ted Fioraliso in Washington. I'll tell you about Rick Perry's plans as the new energy secretary and what one Alaska lawmaker has to say.
Taking a look at the closing numbers on Wall Street today, stocks are ending a day lower as declines in banks and industrial stocks outweigh gains in other sectors.
You're watching Channel 2 News, the 5 o'clock report with Rebecca Polsha.
Well, it looks like the Pebble Mine project got a new life. The Environmental Protection Agency settled an ongoing lawsuit with the Pebble Limited Partnership and says the company can apply for a federal permit for its proposed massive gold and copper mine in the Bristol Bay watershed. Pebble says that means it will start gearing up again and begin the environmental impact studies, which will take a considerable amount of time. People who oppose the project say despite Pebble saying the proposed mine will be smaller than the first plan, they're still worried.
Mine proponents have always said that it's going to be smaller to do their best to allay fears about the risks that are being posed. We harbor no reservations or no misgivings that if they get the chance to develop that mine, they are going to attempt to mine every bit of gold that they can. So they can say that it's a smaller mine plan, but that is just the beginning to a much larger mine.
We recognize we have to coexist with the fishery. We believe that the science and the data that we have generated will allow us to demonstrate why that's the case. We take great exception to what the EPA had previously said about this. We think that their process was flawed. That's behind us now and allows us to move forward and to get into that rigorous, thorough, objective, and science-based environmental impact statement process for the project.
Several groups say the proposed mine could hurt the world's largest salmon runs. Pebble also needs a financial partner moving forward. Environmental protection isn't the only department where President Trump's policies differ from his predecessor. In focus tonight, Rick Perry is settling into his new role in President Trump's cabinet as Energy Secretary. He is the longest-serving governor of Texas and a two-time presidential candidate. Our Washington Bureau, Ted Fioruso, tells us about Perry's plans and his reaction from one of our senators.
I don't wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat.
Life's a little different now for former Texas Governor Rick Perry.
I, James Richard Perry, do solemnly swear.
As the new Energy Secretary, he's responsible for a department with a $30 billion budget, 16,000 federal employees, and 17 national laboratories.
The management of all of that, I think, is what fits nicely into my 14 years of being the governor of the most dynamic economic state.
It's no secret the Trump administration's energy strategy is different from its predecessors, especially when it comes to promoting traditional sources of energy. The president recently signed an executive order to expand offshore drilling. Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski was there.
Recognizing that these resources are important to us as a nation, important to our economy, important to jobs, important for us to just be the world leader that we are when it comes to our energy resources.
Murkowski is chair of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. While she has not met with Perry since his confirmation, she has spoken with him on the phone.
Making sure that there is a discussion about the priorities, I think, is absolutely important.
The president is calling for a 6% cut to the Energy Department's budget, but Murkowski looks forward to working with Perry during the appropriations process. In Washington, Ted Fioruso, Channel 2 News.
Well, back here in Anchorage, a man will serve 45 years in prison for shooting and killing a woman in Eagle River 2 years ago. 35-year-old James Baker was sentenced yesterday for the shooting that killed June McCarr, injured 2 men, and endangered 2 other people. Police say on March 8th of 2015, Baker picked up 5 people in Anchorage and then drove them to Eagle River up to the top of Mile High Drive. After parking for about 15 minutes, Baker got a gun from his car's trunk and started shooting. Last year, he pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. That counts for 35 years of his sentence. He got 10 years for one consolidated charge of attempted murder. When we come back, Travis is still out road tripping.
Tonight on Road Trippin, Alaska, I'll show you a uniquely sustainable biomass-heated greenhouse, giving students in the village of Kasan the opportunity to eat fresh greens year-round.
Almost all of Alaska's vegetables are shipped into the state during the winter, and sometimes they're not in the best condition. But tonight on Road Trip in Alaska, Channel 2's Travis Ketchatorian takes us to a school in the southeast that has engineered a way to serve fresh greens to students all year long.
Fresh vegetables in rural Alaska aren't always easy to find, but students on Prince of Wales Island are growing fresh beets and fresh carrots, even in the dead of winter.
That one's going to be a big one.
From seedling to harvest,
I'm getting all the big ones because they're all mine.
these students are watching their lunch come to life.
We have green onions, tomato plants, carrots. There's kale over there and some chard over there, and that's all. And there's mustard over there.
The village of Kasan school of only about 12 students constructed this greenhouse, not only teaching the children how to farm, but also putting those lessons to good use.
Adding the greenhouses in, you see kids eating more greens. They enjoy salads, and vegetables. And not only are we reaping the benefits of a better academic student, but a healthier student.
It's not unusual to find kids clipping kale or pulling carrots right out of the ground in the morning.
Boom, perfect carrot.
all to be used for lunch that very day.
We just chop them up and put them in our salad sometimes.
The greenhouse runs on an aquaponics system,
There's little pipes that go down that.
operated entirely by the student body. Today, it's Carson Scamahorn's turn to feed the fish. The fish food, in time, becomes a natural fertilizer for the plants.
Their poop in the water goes down into a tube and it gets washed down that bed.
The water flows beneath the veggies, ultimately being recycled back into the system through a sump pump.
It helps the environment. We have less chemicals that are seeping into the groundwater and then into our bodies. The food tastes great. It's just more natural that way.
It's Agriculture 101, with the lessons learned extending far past the classroom.
We're trying to teach our kids to be entrepreneurs. And so we have contracts now with a few of the grocery stores on the island. We have a restaurant that the school owns that we supply our produce to. And all of our school lunches, we supply quite a bit of the produce for our school lunches.
Teaching students not only how to feed themselves, but how to feed an entire community. Coming up on the News Hour, I'll explain further the biomass heater, not only heating this entire greenhouse, but the entire school itself. For Road Trip in Alaska, I'm Travis Ketchatorian.
Those vegetables look good. Well, Jackie, a sunny, warm Friday for us. It's so nice.
Yeah, soak it up now because the weekend holds more clouds and rain, but a few breaks. The timeline on the weekend forecast is coming up.
Now, Channel 2 weather with meteorologist Jackie Purcell.
Good evening, everyone. We'll see less cloud development leading to any possibility of showers. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty dry Friday night across the Anchorage and Valley areas. Now for a look at our time-lapse camera, we had some beautiful blue sky. Look at those clouds billowing and building over Mount Susitna. But you know what? So far, things have stayed rather calm. Our almanac, it shows our high temperature hit 57 degrees at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. 55, the normal high temperature this time of year, and 40 for your overnight low, and just trace precipitation for the entire month so far. 62 from Birchwood, we have 65 in Eagle River, so you can see how pleasant it is as we go through our Friday evening. If you're listening to us on the radio, take it slow and easy, 65. So it's going to be a nice one as we move through the evening hours. However, wet weather and clouds will be coming our way on Saturday. Showers taper off on Monday, and there will be some sunshine. Showers taper off on Mother's Day, that is, and there will be some sunshine on Monday. You can see this continued spin of low pressure into the Bering Sea, and it's providing some wet weather into the southwestern coast. It eventually spreads into the Gulf of Alaska and influences our weather as we get into the weekend. We still see some scattered showers and rain developing into the interior. It's much quieter across much of the south central area. It's really to our north and into the Susitna Valley that we see that development, but there's clouds right along these Kenai Mountains and around the east side of Anchorage as well. But generally, it has been a nice day for much of the panhandle as well. There is high pressure just to our south. This area of low pressure will continue to move right on through, and this is why our Saturday, it is not going to be a sunny one. If I could just push that little low pressure out of the way and change things, I would, but it is moving our way. Here's a look at your current temperatures across the state. 55 in Fairbanks, 66 this hour. In McGrath, we have the 20s along the Arctic slope. Some of the slower areas of the state to warm up. 50s across the southeast panhandle, and it's 50s and 60s across much of the south central area. Kenai reporting 49 here in the last hour, with 52 for you in Yakutat. So our conditions tonight should be beautiful, a nice Friday night, but overnight we'll see increased clouds, and there is a chance of some showers moving in. Generally light winds, but some isolated rain showers into the valley areas, and partly sunny skies are expected to start off there Saturday. So we're looking at a pretty nice evening, partly cloudy, and a low temperature of 42 degrees. But check out the 7-day outlook. Yes, showers on Saturday. 80% chance, that's pretty good. So showers in the morning turning to rain into the afternoon. Daytime highs will be a little bit cooler at 54 degrees and 58 for our high. Just a few showers on Mother's Day on Sunday. And we, as I mentioned, return to a sunny outlook on Monday, but then that's kind of short-lived. By Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're looking at mostly cloudy skies with just a scattered chance of showers thrown in there as well.
I was hoping to be nicer, but you know.
Your Mother's Day will probably be the best of the two.
Good,
So.
still good for going outside then.
Yes, I
There we
think
go.
so.
Thanks, Jackie. Still ahead, tackling the state's drug problem. It's one of the more than just lawmakers to solve. How the prison system is affected. We look ahead to the news hour. Recapping tonight's top stories, an Anchorage couple was found not guilty on all charges against them in the case of the 2015 Sockeye wildfire. Greg Immig and Amy DeWitt were originally charged with 12 counts each, including negligent burning, burning without a permit, and reckless endangerment. But the jury ultimately sided with the defense, who argued the state's investigation was not thorough enough. And in Juneau, the Republican-led Senate rejected a progressive income tax to fill the state's budget gap. Lawmakers say it's rare to have a floor vote on a bill when it doesn't have the support to pass, but Senate leadership says they needed to send the message that the income tax will not pass. Mike Ross joins us with a story coming up on the News Hour. Mike.
Rebecca, tonight at 6, we'll speak with the Department of Corrections Commissioner a day after charges are announced against a local defense lawyer accused of smuggling drugs to her client in prison. Hear his perspective on how common drug smuggling is in jail and what the department is doing to try to stop it. That interview plus much more coming up tonight at 6 on the Channel 2 News Hour.
Should be an interesting story. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for joining us on the 5 o'clock report. NBC Nightly News starts in just a moment. We leave you tonight with a live look of East Anchorage. We will see you back here at 6 for the News Hour. Have a great night.